Adulting, you're a grown up. You got responsibilities. You've got to take care of business. There are some things that you just have to do. As an adult, there are different lessons that we learn every single day. Sometimes we learn it from other people's experiences, and sometimes you learn it from your own. Sometimes those lessons are very, very, very painful, but they're effective. So today we're going to be talking about adulting, some of the lessons that I've learned in my experience as an adult. Welcome to Big People Business. I am Shelly-Ann, author, activist, Jamaican. Let's talk about adulting. So now you're a grown up. As children, we probably don't hear a lot of things about being grown up, but we're told about some things that grown ups are allowed to do that we are not allowed to do. A lot of them has to do with, big people things like sexuality or even the type of music we can listen to. We were not allowed to read certain things. Well, some of us read it anyway, but you get what I'm saying. As a child, you learn that there are some things that are for grown up and some things that are for children. One of the things that you observe, or let me talk about myself, one of the things that I observed that grown ups have to do was pay bills. And I remember as a child, I used to just look at how, people who I admire were able to just jump in the car and drive where they're going. And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to get to a point where I have a car that I can just jump into and drive where I'm going. Because as a child, you got to ask grown-ups permission to do everything. So let's talk about when you become a grown-up. Those are some perks. There's some other things that being a grown-up are not very fun to do, but we're going to talk about it. Now, this list of lessons that I have here are personal to me. I know some of you are going to disagree with my perspective on some of them, and that is what we do. After all, this is big people business. Big people disagree. So I'm just going to tell you the lessons that I've learned in my 4 decades of life. More than half of it spent adulting, and life, trust me, is the biggest teacher of lessons. Trust me, anything life teach me, I remember. There's probably a scar as well, but we're going to talk about it. The first lesson that life has taught me as a grown-up, and this is something that was beaten into me as a child, but life has taught me that honesty is not always the best policy. Now I hear all of my morally strong friends and my ethical geniuses saying, Shelly, what do you mean? Honesty is always the best policy. Okay, there are situations where, especially when working in corporate, requires you to hold back on some of your honesty. Or let me just say, filter some of your honesty, because that honesty might get you fired or might get somebody in trouble who's powerful enough to make your life a living hell in that company. Sometimes that honesty in your relationship is going to not get you any sexy time. Sometimes your partner asks you a question that if you answer honestly in that moment, you're sleeping by yourself. I'm just saying, honesty is not always the best policy. Another lesson. The golden rule is flawed. Now, this is something that I have had to learn the hard way. Remember when I tell you that there are scars in some of the lessons I've learned? This is one of them. Now, I'm a very, very big believer of, listen, treat people the way you want to be treated. As a matter of fact, for my religious friends, usually when we get into debates about religion, I'm like, okay, so I will give you the golden rule. The golden rule works to a point. Because what adulting has taught me is no matter how you treat people, they're going to treat you the way they want to treat you. That's just it. And a lot of the times, it's not as good as you treat them, or it's not as bad as you treat them. Right now, I'm struggling to start treating people the way they treat me. And because I am genuinely a nice person, I've chosen not to do that. But for those people who I'm tempted to treat the way they treat me, I just start to close that door. I just start to ease them out of my circle, just show them a little way out, just shove them out calmly, because the golden rule is flawed. You have some people that are just gonna take as much as you give. You have some people that don't believe in reciprocity. That's a real thing. So I know it sounds nice. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And generally speaking, you can apply that, but understand that you don't have any control of how they do unto you. Bear that in mind. The golden rule is certainly flawed. Oh, this is a hard one. At the end of the day, you're alone. I know I talk about community a lot. I talk about having people to support you, having people in different spaces that you can definitely depend on. But at the end of the day, the only person that will always be there for you is you. You hear me use the word always? I mean always. Sometimes circumstances will not allow somebody else to show up for you no matter how they want to. You still have you. At the end of the day, you have to be comfortable with being there for you, showing up for you, being your biggest fan, being the only one who believes in you. Because if you're not that person, boy, I recommend you see somebody about that, because if you can't be there for you, nobody else will, no matter what they tell you. It sounds morbid. It's a lesson. You can't skip the hard work. Now, this is something that I have to talk about. And I talk about it because we live in a society where we are talking a lot about passion and dreams, and you need to have your passion, and you need to know your dream, and you need to dream big, and you need to dream so big that your dream scares you. And at some point, you got to wake up and get to work. At the end of the day, you could have all the plans. You could write all the lists. You could think about all the different ways to improve your situation. You have to get to work. And work includes those little things that you don't really enjoy doing, but they're necessary. Those little things that you consider boring, that you really would have given it to somebody else to do, but they're necessary. Some of you right now are studying, and there are certain parts of your studies that you enjoy. There are certain classes that you absolutely hate, but they say you have to do it because it's a part of the course, and you have to pass it. Yes, you have to do the work. You cannot get around the work. I know there's a lot of schemes and there's a lot of things that people are saying to you. Well, you know, you can do this thing. You can make $10,000 a month by working 1 hour a day. Nothing, Augusta. Unless you're a drug dealer or you do something else illegal. Nothing, Augusta. You got to put in the work. You got to put in the work. Lesson. Rejection is an external activity. What I mean by that is, stop telling yourself, say you can't do things. Stop telling yourself no. Stop telling yourself, I'm not qualified for. Allow external forces and spaces to do the rejection of you. A lot of you don't take advantage of opportunities because you have rejected yourself before you even apply. Make it make sense? Rejection is an external affair. Allow the people outside of you to do the rejection. They do a really good job at it. Why you want to take out the people in job? On the flip side of that is, acceptance is internal. I know there are a lot of people right now struggling because they are seeking external validation. A lot of you are struggling because you want this person to say you matter. You want them to see you. You want them to validate you. Acceptance has to come from you. You have to accept you. Your acceptance has to start internally, because if you are not happy with who you are, it's going to show. And if you only have you and you're living in a space where you're not happy with you, feel free to make adjustments. But that is an internal activity. You have to work on accepting you. And if there are things about yourself that you don't accept, start the adjustment. You might need to hire a professional to help you. Hire the professional. Yes, yes. But you have to be happy with number one, with you. All right? Hey, I'm about to step on corns, but here we go. Unconditional love does not exist. I must say it again for the people in the back. Unconditional love does not exist. There are conditions. There are many conditions. And for my religious friends, even the God you worship don't love you unconditionally. Lord Jesus, Shelly, what you mean? You heard me. There are many rules in the various religious books as to what causes them to be turned away from the deity that they worship. Wally rules, from where you wear to where you eat to who you sleep with to if you sleep with somebody to the type of friends that you have to what you think about. All of those are conditions. Unconditional love does not exist. Well, let me take that back. Maybe with dogs. Can't matter how you treat dog I love you same way. Alright, let me take that back. Except for dogs, unconditional love does not exist. That's a rule that I've learned. I ruffled a few feathers there, but big people think that's what it is. Which brings me to the next thing that I've learned. Loving yourself is necessary for your survival, your happiness, your functionality, your dignity. If you don't love self, what are we doing? You have to love you first. Number one. I see it all the time. People say, oh no, I love my children more than I love myself. Okay, that might be how you feel. But I would push back on that. And I would say, how more effective of a parent would you be if you love yourself first? Because it's in loving yourself that gives you the strength to be your best self, which allows you to show up for your children. Some of us are in relationships where we say, oh, I love my spouse more than I love myself. You know yourself. What does that look like? I've seen relationships where people love their partners more than they love themselves. And a lot of those relationships are toxic and abusive. I'm not saying all of them are. I haven't seen all of them. But the ones that I've seen, usually the results. Loving oneself is necessary for your survival. It's necessary for you to be able to add anything valuable to others that you love. Make sure you love yourself, is what I'm saying. Yeah. And this is the final lesson that I'm going to talk about right now. I mean, life continues to teach me, and there's a lot of other things that life has taught me. But this one, I think, is so important. And it is, you got to work through the fear. You're never going to stop being afraid. There's a whole heap of things to be afraid of. I mean, being a woman living in this world, I can tell you. I can make lists of things to be afraid of. Do it anyway. There are a lot of reasons for you not to try, and fear is a very big thing on the list. And there are a lot of us right now unable to try anything new because we're afraid. We're unable to take that chance because we're afraid. We're unable to apply for that thing that we want because we're afraid. Do it with the fear. Feel the fear and do it. The fear is not going to go away, so you might as well do it. And fear of rejection, you already live in rejection. You know what rejection feels like. Rejection is where you are right now. When you get over fear of rejection, you can move. Feel the fear and move. Act. Send it in. It's not perfect. You want to change a million other things? Send it. I know you're not happy with how it feels right now and you really just want to go somewhere and hide. stand there and go through it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. I am in my 4th decade of life, and I can tell you that at this stage of my life, I feel less fear, more solid. I know they say that when you get older, you're supposed to get better with age. I think I'm getting worse because I'm losing the little tact that well, let me not tell lie about myself. I don't really have much tact. Like, never really started with much. But my point is, the more you get into who you are as a person, the more fearless you become and the more sure you become. So you step that way and you speak that way. And I only wish that I met me or somebody like me in my 20s, because it would have made a very big difference. And on that note, I just want to say to that 20-year-old who's watching me right now, you got this. You are capable of amazing things. You can do what it is you set your mind to do. So go and get to work. And on that note, I'm going to leave it there. And I'm just going to tell you that it is important to be authentic. Be yourself. Authenticity is the magic. Until next time, I am Shelly-Ann Weeks, author, activist, Jamaican. See you on the next Big People Business. Take care.